Rust is an extremely unforgiving game with gunplay that's extremely hard to learn and one of the largest skill gaps in gaming. This makes Rust very difficult to get into as a new player. There's a ton to learn and a ton to master. So today we're going to talk about whether Rust is for you. For the record, I will be assuming you're playing on strictly vanilla servers for the purposes of this review. I don't want to go into like the modded versions of Rust because obviously those are going to provide a completely different experience, and every server brings something different when it comes to the modded side of Rust. So I don't even want to go into those. So we're just going to be strictly talking about vanilla Rust servers. The reason for Rust being so unforgiving is because at any time you could lose everything you've worked for. You could get raided at any time, even while you were offline. Also, if you've been farming materials, this could happen. This kind of stuff can get really frustrating for a new player because to be successful in Rust, you have to commit tons of time to learning the game's mechanics, and you have to commit tons of time to actually playing the game. Because the second you get off, you're vulnerable to losing everything. The good thing is, because Rust is so unforgiving, there is no better feeling than succeeding in Rust. Whether that be by completing a raid, successfully taking oil rig, or killing a clan and stealing their loot, all of them make you want more, and this addictive feeling is what keeps people playing Rust. If you can get past the ridiculous skill cap, there is no game quite like Rust. First thing you should do when you start on a Rust server is farm some materials and find a base location. Normally, you want your base to be near a couple monuments. Monuments are the named locations on the map. Monuments normally have a ton of good loot, so you want to stay near them if possible. However, if you're a newer player, building a base farther away from these may be better for you because where there is monuments, there's lots of PvP. So by building farther away from monuments, you can potentially lower the PvP around your base, which can be more appealing to someone who's very new to Rust. Once your base has been built, and you have a TC down, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. Your setup process is over. Now that you've completed the setup process, it's time to upgrade your weapon arsenal. You can do this by either PvPing other players and stealing their loot, or farming for the guns yourself by going to monuments and farming scrap. I'm going to go with the latter option just for the sake of this video. There's a total of 25 monuments, all ranging in difficulty from supermarket to large oil rig, with the latter requiring a good amount of gear and skill to complete. In pretty much every monument, there are barrels and loot crates scattered around the area. If you break these barrels with a pickaxe or any form of tool, the barrels will drop loot. This loot consists of scrap and recyclable items. Same loot applies to crates, except crates have a higher chance of dropping higher tier loot. Sometimes from crates you can get guns. So crates normally bring more value to a player than barrels. Obviously, the more difficult the monument, the higher tier loot it provides. For example, oil rig provides you with assault rifles, explosives, and other high tier guns, if you can manage to get past the overwhelming amount of scientists roaming the oil rig. And keep in mind, even if you complete oil rig with no problems, you still have to get home with the loot without someone killing you. This makes successfully taking a monument really satisfying. You can easily walk away with enough loot from one of these high tier monuments to supply a raid you've been wanting to do, or to just restock your gun box with plenty of weapons to go around. Now, the second option I would argue is more difficult. Gunplay in this game is extremely hard to master. Recoil patterns, however, are consistent, and they never change, but they are extremely hard to control. That's why if you are a new player, I would recommend joining a battle server with some friends and just learning the guns. If you attempt to PvP people without understanding recoil and how the gameplay works, you'll likely just end up dying to someone way better than you, and you'll lose a valuable kit. That's why I recommend to try to avoid PvP until you're confident in your ability to control recoil. Since you now have some late game loot, you've pretty much completed Rust. You can either go raid some unsuspecting base owner, or you can just enjoy some PvP on the server with your newfound loot. Now, to end this video off, I'd like to say if you are considering buying Rust, I would only recommend it if you have a friend who will play it with you, and if you have a lot of free time, because as I said earlier in this video, it takes a huge commitment to play a wipe of Rust. So unless you have a ton of free time on your hands, I would actually recommend against purchasing this game. I think for the overwhelming majority of people, the game is not for you. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the game is bad. I love Rust. It can be a ton of fun with friends, and it's super rewarding to succeed. I just don't think the commitment required is worth it for most people. Hopefully, you found this video entertaining or helpful. If you did, I'm sure you'll like this video, where I review another FPS game in Rust's price range. Anyways, see you guys in the next one. Peace out.